Have you ever lived in a body that no longer felt like your own? A body that every morning woke up not with hope, but with the question, how many more hours of pain must I endure today? Have you ever felt imprisoned within your flesh? Not in a jail cell, but in a cage called a woman's body. My name is Elena Thompson. I didn't die from a sudden accident. It wasn't a lightning strike, drowning, or car crash. I died from bleeding. Slow, relentless, silent. One drop at a time, as if life itself was dripping out of me through an endless menstrual cycle that refused to stop. I lived for nearly 10 years in what people politely called high pain tolerance, but the truth was I was exhausted. My doctors said I had a severe hormonal imbalance that turned my cycle into a monthly nightmare. I suffered from chronic anemia. I fainted often. I lived with constant pain, sleeplessness, fog, weakness. I tried everything, every prescription, every blood test. I changed my diet. I followed conventional medicine and natural therapy. But the bleeding never stopped. Month after month, year after year. Eventually, I couldn't keep working. I stepped away from my teaching job, the one thing that had once made me feel alive. I lived alone. Friends drifted away. My body weakened. My spirit dimmed. When there were no other options, my doctor recommended a hysterectomy, a surgery they called routine, simple, and safe. I signed the consent form. I smiled at the nurse. I wished the surgeon a good day. But deep down, I heard a voice, quiet but steady, whispering that my body had reached its limit. The strange thing is, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of not dying. I was afraid of waking up again and going on like before, of having to pretend again, to smile when I was breaking, to push through when I could barely breathe, to silently survive another day as if I didn't exist. Do you know that feeling? The feeling of drifting through life with no anchor, no hand to hold, no light at the end of the tunnel? The night before the surgery, I sat alone in my small apartment, my hand resting on my lower abdomen, the place I once hoped would carry life, but now was about to be taken from me forever. I didn't cry. I didn't pray. I just whispered one sentence into the silence. If I don't come back tomorrow, then please, at least let me see why I ever came here in the first place. I had no idea that whisper would be the very thing to awaken another world. A world where death is not the end, but the beginning. A world where the soul is no longer confined by flesh and blood. Where every question is answered not with words, but with light. And maybe, just maybe, you've asked the same question too. What happens when we step outside the body? What waits for us on the other side? No one ever taught me what it feels like to leave your body. There was no class to prepare me for what it's like to see yourself from the outside. But that was the very first thing I remembered. I was floating, hovering near the ceiling of the operating room, looking down at a pale, fragile woman lying motionless on the table. Her lips were colorless, her arms are limp, her body is so thin that it looks as if it has given up. And yet, somehow, I knew that was me. But I also knew I wasn't her anymore. There was no pain, no heaviness, no effort to breathe or pretend or endure. And for the first time in years, there was no fear. I didn't see a tunnel. I didn't see darkness. Instead, I saw a gentle stream of light begin to open behind the far wall, like a hidden doorway quietly unfolding. It wasn't blinding. It wasn't loud. But something in that light called to me, the way a child runs without hesitation into their mother's arms. And I stepped through. Not with legs, not with any part of a body. I had no body. I didn't need one. I was pure awareness, the clearest awareness I had ever known. I remember thinking, is this it? Is this death? Then why does it feel like peace? But it wasn't just peace. It was returning. It felt like I had lost my entire life, and now, finally, I was home. I saw a realm that had no name, no fixed color. Yet it shimmered with more radiance than any palette I'd ever shown my students. There was no sky, no ground. Everything was woven from a living, breathing fabric of energy that responded to my very presence. I didn't hear with my ears. I didn't see with my eyes. I felt everything through the vibration of my soul. There were no voices, but everything was communicated perfectly, lovingly. And then a presence appeared. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a ghost. It was a being of light, conscious, alive, warm, formless. Yet, somehow, I knew it knew me. All of me. Even the parts I had never dared say out loud. And the first message it gave me wasn't with words, but I felt it as clearly as any truth I've ever known. You are not a mistake. You were never a burden. You are a soul learning how to remember who you are. I don't know how I cried when there were no more tears, but my entire being broke open into a kind of silent sobbing. It wasn't my body, it was my soul unraveling. No one had ever said those words to me before. My whole life I had been told I was too sensitive, too fragile, too exhausted. But here, for the very first time, I saw that all of it was true, but not in the way I thought. It wasn't weakness. It was a kind of honesty that had never been allowed to bloom. And then something extraordinary began to happen. I started to remember things I'd never been taught in this life. I started to feel that I had been here before, not once, but many, many times. And in that moment, a wave, deep and overwhelming, washed through my soul. An ancient memory opened, not from this lifetime, but from others I had long forgotten. Have you ever wondered why some pain in your life repeats itself even when you've done nothing wrong? Why does the same wound seem to find you, even when you try to live with love? Maybe, just maybe, your soul is carrying a story that was never finished. A story that began somewhere far beyond the edges of this lifetime. I used to believe we only live once. You're born, you grow up, you endure, and then you die. But in that otherworldly space where all limits dissolve and every veil is lifted, I began to remember. Not in pictures, but in vivid, living experience, as if I were there, inside it, reliving it. And I realized I had lived many times before, in different bodies, on distant lands, and each time I carried with me the same lesson, the same wound, the same longing left unfinished. I saw myself as a young woman in 15th century Spain. I was a healer, using herbs to help women through childbirth and fevers. I had saved dozens of them, but I was condemned as a witch. They tied me to a post in the center of the village, burned my books, my medicines, my life's work. And as the flames rose, I heard the cry of a baby I had saved just weeks before. As my body burned, I didn't feel hatred, only a single piercing sorrow. Why do people fear what they don't understand? That question still lives inside me. It has followed me from that lifetime to this one. Then the memory shifted. I saw myself as a man in ancient India, a sage living in a stone cave, teaching the path of detachment and awakening. I had hundreds of disciples, but none of them knew that every night I wept in silence for the woman I had given up to walk the path of renunciation. I preached surrender, but in my heart I had never let her go. I died in meditation, whispering her name in the final breath I had never dared speak aloud. Another memory came rushing in. This time, I was a young black boy in the American South during the early 1800s, born into slavery, never once called by my real name, but I had a voice, a singing voice, and when I sang, people would stop, look up, as if God were breathing through my throat. I was beaten, chained, and sold from one plantation to another, but the voice lived on. And one rainy afternoon, I sang at my mother's burial, the one who died from exhaustion in the cotton fields. The rain mixed with my tears, and I made a vow. If I ever had the chance to return, I would become a voice for those who had been forced into silence. I don't know how many lives I was shown, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. But what I do know for certain is this: not a single one was meaningless. Every lifetime carries a lesson, a voice that was silenced, a love that never had the chance to be whole, a purpose that never reached completion. And I realized something heartbreaking too. Every time I returned to Earth, I came back with part of my memory veiled. And so I stumbled, I hurt, I searched. But maybe that's what makes the journey sacred. If you remembered everything, what would there be to learn? If you never forgot, how could you ever know the power of remembering? I began to see a thread running through all of my lifetimes. I was always a healer, but I was always the one in need of healing too. I always longed to help others find the light, but I always struggled with the shadows inside myself. I was always strong, but I had never learned how to love myself. And maybe that's why I'm here in this lifetime as Elena, as the woman who once thought she was just a patient, as the woman who once hated her own female body for the relentless pain it carried, as the woman who asked a doctor to take her womb, never knowing that within every cell of it lived the memory of lives long gone. I didn't come back just to survive. I came back to remember, to forgive, to love, to finally complete the lesson I've been carrying through the centuries. And then a voice rose from the light, not loud, not demanding, but strong enough to quiet every part of my soul. It asked, "What do you want to do next?" I used to think death was the end, a final period at the end of a sentence, a door that slammed shut, leaving no way back. But here, in this space beyond time and form, I realized something that changed everything. Death doesn't force you to do anything. It offers you a gift, a question, a choice. "What do you want to do next?" the voice asked again. It didn't rush me. It didn't judge me. It felt like a breath from the universe itself, gentle, yet so deeply resonant that it made every part of my soul tremble. I looked around. There were no more lifetimes, no more visions, just me, my consciousness, bare and honest, with no place left to hide. I understood that if I chose to stay, I would merge into this light forever. No more pain, no more separation. I would return to oneness, where the idea of me would dissolve into something infinite and whole. A part of me longed for that, to let go, to rest, to disappear. After so many years of fighting, that possibility felt as sweet as slipping into a dreamless sleep. But then, the light unfolded before me once more. This time, not to show me the past, but to reveal what could happen if I chose to return. Not a pre-written destiny, but crossroads, possibilities, doorways that would open with each small choice I might make after waking up. I saw myself sitting next to a stranger, placing my hand over her heart while she wept in silence. I saw myself writing in a journal, and those words reaching a teenage girl hurting herself behind a locked bedroom door. I saw myself standing in a classroom, not teaching from a textbook, but from the place where I had walked through death and returned. I didn't see glory. I didn't see stages, fame, or miracles. I saw ordinary moments filled with the extraordinary power of real presence. Moments where I could live differently, live awake, live in a way that might remind someone else that they are not alone. Then I saw the final thing. I saw myself lying in a hospital bed, frail, weak, but with eyes that shone brighter than they ever had before. I saw myself smiling, and I knew then, even though returning would mean facing pain again, breaking again, carrying the heaviness of the physical world again, I still wanted to come back. Not because I feared death, but because for the first time in many lifetimes, I truly wanted to live. I looked into the light and sent my answer, not with words, but with every fiber of my being. I want to go back. The light didn't applaud, it didn't celebrate, it simply expanded, like an invisible embrace wrapping around me. And in that moment, just before everything faded, I heard one final message. Then, when you return, remember, you're not going back to be perfect, you're going back to be real. And then I fell. Not like falling downward, but like a stream flowing in reverse, retracing its path. I saw the images collapse inward, the layers of light folding back. I heard the machines. I felt the weight of my body again, the pain, the cold, the heaviness. But beneath it all was something I had never felt before, gratitude. And when I opened my eyes, for the first time after the surgery, I didn't think I survived. I thought, I've just been born again. I woke up with a strange feeling, not the grogginess that follows anesthesia, not fear, not confusion. It was a silence so deep it made my heart weep. My body was still heavy, the incision still ached, the IV was still in my arm, but I knew something inside me had changed forever. Not outwardly, internally. I was no longer the woman who had entered the operating room that morning. I was a survivor, a soul reborn, someone who had just returned from the invisible world. In the first days of recovery, I spoke very little, not because I couldn't, but because I was relearning how to exist in this world. Everything felt too harsh, too loud, too rushed. I missed the light. I missed the absolute stillness of the soul. I missed the way I didn't have to do anything to be loved. Here, everything felt like a test. People's emotions flooded into me like rising water. The smallest sounds exhausted me. My body, unfamiliar now, kept demanding care I no longer knew how to give. And yet, beneath all that weariness, one thing never left me: awareness. I no longer saw people as just people. I saw the light in them. I saw the pain they were hiding. I looked at the nurse walking by and knew she'd fought with her husband. I looked at the doctor checking my wound and sensed a deep regret he'd never spoken aloud. I didn't judge. I just saw. And that alone made it impossible for me to go back to who I was before. So I started writing, on loose scraps of paper, in a notebook, in my phone. I wrote like someone trying to capture the fragments of light before they disappeared in this noisy reality. I didn't write to explain. I wrote to remember, to stay connected, to remind myself that I had once been asked the greatest question of my life: what do you want to do next? And I started choosing differently. I stopped watching the news so much. I stopped trying to be nice just to make others comfortable. I stopped saying yes when my body and soul were screaming no. I stopped going to church out of tradition and began looking for the sacred in the present moment, in a beam of sunlight, a gust of wind, a genuine gaze. I sat for hours by the hospital window just to watch the trees sway, and I saw that even the leaves had souls. One day, when I was finally strong enough to leave my hospital room, I passed by a mirror. I stopped. I looked at myself, not to check my appearance, but to ask, who are you? And what I saw wasn't Elena, the sick woman, not the younger girl who once dreamed of things that never came to be. I saw all the souls that had ever lived through me. I saw the softness, the strength, the hunger to be loved, the fear of being left behind. And I looked into my own eyes that had once seen the other side and whispered, I remember you. No one teaches you how to live after you've died. No one tells you that coming back is the hardest part, because you no longer live on autopilot. You live with awareness. Every small act, drinking water, touching someone's hand, walking down a street, comes with the quiet question, am I truly here? And when you live with presence, you begin to notice things you used to overlook. The way a stranger smiles, the accidental brush of a shoulder that feels unexpectedly warm, the sound of birdsong arriving just as you were about to give up. Everything, even the smallest, most ordinary things, becomes miraculous. Not because they've changed, but because you have. And then I knew. I didn't come back to heal the world. I came back so I could stop running from myself. I no longer live the way I used to, not because I tried to change, but because I simply can't live against my soul anymore. Once you've stood in that realm of light, where there's no time, no status, no script to perform, everything false in this world becomes painfully thin, almost laughable. I see the power games of society, the fear hiding behind displays of strength, the hollow, I'm fine, spoken by souls quietly breaking apart. And I can't pretend anymore. After I was discharged, I returned to my old apartment. Everything was still there. The couch stained with ink, the photo of my mother and me on the shelf, the afternoon light slanting through the tiny window. But I was no longer the woman who had walked out of that room before surgery. That woman had lived in fear, in quiet resignation, in silence. But now I live in remembrance of being a soul inside a body, of having chosen to come back. And that changes the way I show up for everything. I began caring about what once seemed small. I listened to people without preparing a clever response. I placed a hand on my heart each morning and asked, what do you need today? I stopped chasing goals. I started living with intention, cooking meals as an act of gratitude to my body, calling a friend like I was reconnecting a thread between our souls, writing each word as if light itself was moving through my hand. And then something unexpected began to happen. I started attracting others who were also remembering. None of them had experienced a near-death event like I had, but there was something in their eyes that mirrored my own, a soft awakening, a quiet sorrow, an unspoken question. And as we sat together in silence, in tears, in awkward smiles, I realized I didn't return just to live for myself. I came back to walk alongside others. One afternoon, while walking around the lake near my home, I saw a boy sitting alone, knees pulled to his chest, his eyes distant and hollow. I didn't know why, but I felt drawn to him. I walked over, sat down beside him, and said nothing. I just sat. And then, quietly, he began to cry. I didn't need to ask what had happened, because some pain doesn't need to be explained. It just needs someone to be there, someone real. Later, his mother told me it was the first time he'd opened up since his father passed. But I didn't feel like I'd done anything extraordinary. I had simply been present. And maybe that's the greatest gift we can ever offer one another. I'm not a saint. I still get it wrong. I still get tired. I still question myself. I still have days when giving up feels easier than continuing. But there is one thing that has never left me. I remember the light. I remember the one who told me, "You were never a burden." And I carry that truth in every hug I give, every look I share, every moment I choose to forgive. So now, when someone asks me, what is real? I don't point to the sky. I don't quote scripture. I simply look into their eyes and say, real is when you don't have to prove anything to deserve love. And if you're reading this, if something inside you stirs a soft echo rising from someplace deep within, maybe you too have known that light. Maybe you didn't have to die to see it. Maybe all it takes is stopping for a moment, listening, and asking, am I fully here? Because sometimes just one moment of complete presence is all it takes for your soul to begin remembering. And if you've ever had a moment like that, where something cracked open, where the old life began to fade and a deeper truth emerged, I invite you to share your story. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be logical. It just needs to be real. Because maybe the light in you is exactly what someone else out there has been waiting for.